The death toll from the Battle at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, over the 3 days of engagement in July of 1863 was staggering. Over 50,000 men, 23,000 of them Union soldiers, and 28,000 Confederates. Despite the slaughter and the successful Confederate retreat, it was a clear Union victory. Since it prevented Southern forces from marching upon Washington, D.C., it was also a demoralizing blow to the South because it highlighted the Confederacy's shortages of soldiers, weapons, food, livestock, clothing, the basic personnel and material necessary to sustain long-term warfare. The defeat at Gettysburg left the Confederacy vulnerable, open to assault at its very center, and spelled the end of any hopes for Southern victory. Despite the hope that Gettysburg provided for the North, the human toll of the war was already immense and would continue. By war's end, casualties exceeded 1 million out of a population of 31 million. The challenge for Lincoln was to deliver remarks that would not only comfort the survivors, but also to solidify support for continuing the sacrifices and offer a rationale for the horrendous burdens of war on a scale that would ennoble all who paid its price. Lincoln was not the featured speaker at the Gettysburg commemoration held 4 months later. The primary speaker, Harvard president Edward Everett, talked for 2 hours. He was followed by Lincoln, who delivered the Gettysburg Address in 3 minutes. The response from the audience was so weak that Lincoln left with a sense of failure. The lessons laid out in the address are drawn directly from the Declaration of Independence and show the influence of Thomas Jefferson's deistic political philosophy, which Lincoln found deeply appealing and made his own. Lincoln's message here, as well as in his first inaugural, was in large part a cautionary meditation on the necessity of majority rule. If Southern secession were allowed to stand, Lincoln believed, there would be no foundation left for democratic governance in either the North or the South, and the American experiment would have proved to be a failure.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation,
conceived in liberty,
and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure.
We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field
as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live.
It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense.
We cannot dedicate.
we cannot consecrate.
We cannot hallow this ground.
The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here.
It is for us, the living, rather than to be dedicated here to the unfinished work
which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us.
That from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion.
That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain.
That this nation,
under God,
shall have a new birth of freedom.
And that government of the people,
by the people,
for the people,
shall not perish from the earth.
from the earth.
From the earth.
shall not perish from the earth.